The familiar scent of Mom's pot roast filled the colonial dining room as our family gathered for Sunday dinner at my parents' house on Oakwood Drive. Dad carved the meat with ceremonial precision while Mom arranged the side dishes on her best china. I sat in my usual spot, quietly observing the ritual I'd participated in for 28 years. "Jessica, you really need to start thinking about your housing situation," Dad announced between bites. "Renting that little apartment downtown is fine for now, but you can't put off real financial planning forever." My sister Amanda nodded from across the polished mahogany table. "Dad's right. I'm so glad Mark and I bought our starter home last year. Building equity feels amazing compared to throwing money away on rent." I continued eating silently, glancing around the dining room that had been redecorated 3 times since my childhood. The crown molding hardwood floors and bay windows that Dad loved to show off to visitors. Through those windows, I could see the mature oak trees that gave the street its name, their branches casting familiar shadows across the manicured lawn. "The problem with your generation," Dad continued, settling into his lecture mode, "is you want everything immediately. Property ownership requires patience, sacrifice, long-term commitment. You can't just decide one day to buy a house." Uncle Tom raised his wine glass approvingly. "Exactly right, Dave. Real estate is serious business. Down payments, credit scores, market timing. Not everyone has what it takes to be a homeowner." My phone vibrated in my purse with the familiar pattern of weekend property notifications. Mortgage payments clearing, maintenance requests, tenant communications that required owner approval even on Sundays. "Jessica's always been more of a free spirit," Aunt Linda added with gentle condescension. "Nothing wrong with that, but property ownership requires a different mindset. Responsibility, stability, forward thinking." Mom smiled sympathetically as she passed the mashed potatoes. "There's no rush, honey. Some people are natural renters. It's a perfectly valid lifestyle choice." My younger brother Kevin looked up from his phone. "Actually, the rental market's pretty brutal right now. Jessica's probably smart to wait until she can afford something decent. No point in buying just to buy." Dad's expression turned serious, the way it did when he was about to deliver important wisdom. "That's exactly the wrong thinking, Kevin. Property ownership isn't just about having a place to live. It's about building wealth, creating stability, proving you can handle major financial responsibility." Through the bay windows, I could see the Hendersons' house next door, where I'd played with their daughter Sarah throughout elementary school. The Johnsons' place across the street with its distinctive red shutters. The Garcias corner lot with the beautiful rose garden. Memories of a neighborhood I'd known intimately since childhood. "Real estate appreciation in this area has been incredible," Amanda's husband Mark chimed in. "We bought at exactly the right time. Property values are up 18% just since last year." "Smart timing," Dad agreed. "This neighborhood's always been solid. Good schools, stable families, properties that hold their value. That's why your mother and I chose to buy here 25 years ago." My phone buzzed more insistently now, displaying notifications from my property management company, my real estate attorney, and my private banker. Sunday evenings often brought urgent matters that couldn't wait until Monday morning. "Jessica needs to understand that homeownership is about more than monthly payments," Uncle Tom declared, warming to the topic. "It's about having something that's truly yours, something no landlord can take away." "Exactly," Dad nodded emphatically. "Pride of ownership, community investment, the ability to build something lasting. Renters are always temporary, always transient. Homeowners put down roots." I glanced at my phone screen showing 7 missed calls from my executive assistant and multiple urgent messages marked, "Property portfolio update, owner signature required." The timing was less than ideal, but some decisions couldn't be delayed regardless of family dinner schedules. "The discipline required for homeownership," Aunt Linda continued, "is what separates successful people from those who just drift through life. You have to commit, sacrifice, think beyond immediate gratification." Mom reached over to pat my hand supportively. "Don't let them pressure you, sweetheart. You'll know when you're ready. Not everyone needs to own property to be happy. But everyone should want to build wealth," Dad corrected gently. "Property ownership is the foundation of financial security in America. Without it, you're always at someone else's mercy." Kevin was scrolling through real estate apps on his phone. "Houses in this neighborhood are going for like $850,000 now. Remember when you guys bought this place for $180,000? Best investment we ever made, Dad said with obvious satisfaction. 25 years of equity building, tax advantages, and now we own our home outright. That's what real financial planning looks like. My phone started ringing with my assistant's number. I'd told Rachel to only call during family time for genuine emergencies, which meant something significant was happening across my property portfolio. I should take this, I said, standing up from the table. It might be important. Dad frowned slightly. Can't it wait until after dinner? Family time should be family time. It'll just be a minute, I assured him, walking toward the kitchen for privacy. Miss Thornton. Rachel's voice was apologetic but urgent. I'm sorry to interrupt your Sunday, but we have 3 situations requiring immediate owner approval. What's happening? First, the Oakwood Drive property acquisition finally cleared escrow. The sellers completed their move-out yesterday, and legal needs your signature on the final transfer documents. I glanced back toward the dining room where my family continued their discussion about property ownership and financial responsibility. The irony of the timing wasn't lost on me. Which Oakwood Drive property? I asked, though I already knew. 1247 Oakwood Drive. The colonial with the bay windows and mature oak trees. Purchase price was $847,000. All cash as you requested. My parents' house. The home where I'd grown up, where we were currently having dinner, where Dad was explaining the importance of homeownership to his daughter who had just bought it out from under him. What's the second issue? The portfolio expansion is complete. Thornton Properties now owns 17 residential properties in the Oakwood neighborhood, including the corner lot and the properties with red shutters. Total neighborhood control is at 83%. I could hear Dad's voice from the dining room, still lecturing about property values and market timing, completely unaware that his daughter now owned most of the street he was praising. And the third situation? Your parents' mortgage company called. They're 3 months behind on payments and facing foreclosure proceedings. As the new owner, you need to decide how to handle the transition. My stomach dropped. This explained why the house had come on the market so suddenly, why my parents had seemed stressed lately despite their confident talk about homeownership success. They don't know about the sale yet? The previous owners requested privacy during the transition period. They have 60 days to arrange alternative housing or negotiate new terms with the new owner. I closed my eyes, processing the full complexity of the situation. My parents were about to lose their home to foreclosure, having no idea that their daughter had quietly purchased it to protect them from exactly that outcome. Have legal prepare a lease agreement, I said quietly. Fair market rent, long-term stability, maintenance included. I'll handle the family conversation myself. Of course. Should I bring the documents to your current location? Yes, but give me 10 minutes to prepare everyone. I returned to the dining room where the property ownership discussion was still in full swing. Amanda was showing Kevin real estate listings on her phone while Dad explained market trends and Uncle Tom shared wisdom about mortgage interest rates. Everything okay? Mom asked with maternal concern. Actually, we need to talk, I said, retaking my seat. All of us. Something in my tone must have conveyed seriousness because the table went quiet. Dad set down his fork and gave me his full attention the way he did when he sensed potential crisis. What's wrong? He asked. Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Rachel's timing was perfect as always. She'd given me exactly 10 minutes to prepare them for what was coming. I'll get it, I said, standing again. We're not expecting anyone, Dad said, looking confused. I opened the front door to find Rachel holding a leather portfolio and wearing her professional expression that meant serious business was being conducted. Miss Thornton, the documents are ready for your review and signature. The formality in her voice carried back to the dining room, where I could hear my family's conversation stop completely. Rachel had worked with me for 6 years and knew how to handle delicate family situations. Come in, I said, leading her toward the dining room where 7 pairs of eyes watched our approach. Rachel, this is my family. Everyone, this is Rachel Martinez, my executive assistant. The introductions felt surreal in the familiar setting of my childhood home. Rachel's business attire and professional demeanor seemed almost alien in the cozy domestic space where I'd eaten thousands of meals. Ms. Thornton, Rachel said, opening her portfolio, the property acquisition documents require your signature. and legal needs immediate direction on the foreclosure situation. Dad's face went pale at the word, foreclosure. Mom's hand flew to her throat, and Amanda looked between Rachel and me with growing confusion. Foreclosure. Dad's voice was barely above a whisper. I looked around the table at my family, people who'd spent dinner explaining property ownership principles to someone they assumed could never afford to buy a house. Dad, Mom, we need to discuss your mortgage situation. How do you know about? Mom started, then stopped, looking at Rachel's professional portfolio with dawning understanding. Ms. Thornton owns 17 properties in this neighborhood, Rachel explained matter-of-factly. Including this address as of yesterday's closing. The silence that followed was profound. I could see my family processing this information, trying to reconcile their assumptions about my financial situation with the reality Rachel had just revealed. You bought our house? Amanda asked faintly. I bought the house you were about to lose to foreclosure, I clarified gently. Dad's confident demeanor crumbled entirely. Jessica, how did you know about the foreclosure? How could you afford? I've been in real estate for 8 years, I said simply. Property acquisition, portfolio management, neighborhood development. I monitor distressed properties and intervene when I can help families stay in their homes. 8 years. Kevin stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You've been buying houses for 8 years? Rachel pulled out her tablet, displaying my portfolio summary. Thornton Properties currently owns 847 residential units, 34 commercial buildings, and 12 development projects across the metropolitan area. Total portfolio value is approximately $2.8 billion. The number seemed to echo in the familiar dining room. I watched Dad try to process that his daughter, whose financial wisdom he'd been questioning all evening, controlled enough real estate to house a small city. $2.8 billion, Uncle Tom repeated slowly. Conservative estimate, I confirmed. The portfolio appreciates significantly each year. Mom was looking around her dining room with new eyes. You own our house. I own the house you've lived in for 25 years, I said gently. And I want you to continue living here, but as tenants rather than struggling homeowners. Dad found his voice again, though it lacked all its earlier authority. The foreclosure. We were 3 months behind. How did you? I monitor foreclosure listings in neighborhoods where I want to expand my portfolio, I explained. When I saw this address, I moved quickly to purchase before the bank could seize it. To protect us, Mom said with understanding. To protect you and to acquire a property in a neighborhood I was already investing in, I said honestly. It made sense both personally and professionally. Rachel cleared her throat diplomatically. The lease agreement offers market rate rent with maintenance included, plus an option to purchase back at any time. Very favorable terms for continuing tenants. Amanda was scrolling through her phone, apparently researching my company. Thornton Properties, you're in Forbes. Self-made real estate mogul reshaping urban housing. I've tried to stay private, I said. Media attention complicates family relationships. Like this conversation, Dad said quietly. Exactly like this conversation. We sat in the dining room where I'd learned to tie my shoes, done homework, celebrated birthdays, and received countless lectures about responsibility and planning. The room looked the same, but everything had fundamentally changed. So what happens now? Mom asked. How you know the truth, I said. You continue living here but with a lease instead of a mortgage. No more foreclosure pressure, no more behind payments, just stable housing with a landlord who wants you to stay. Our daughter the landlord, Dad said with a mixture of pride and bewilderment. Your daughter the property owner who learned everything about real estate from listening to you talk about this neighborhood for 25 years. Rachel began organizing documents for signature. The lease can start immediately and the foreclosure proceedings will be dismissed tomorrow morning. For the first time all evening, Dad smiled. A real smile, not the condescending kind that had punctuated his property ownership lectures. I guess you were listening to those financial planning talks after all. Every word, I assured him. My phone buzzed with Monday's schedule. Board meetings, construction reviews, tenant relations, and probably several more property acquisitions. The empire wouldn't pause for family revelations. But for now, sitting in my childhood dining room that I now owned, surrounded by people who'd always wanted me to succeed, I was content to let the business wait until tomorrow. The pot roast was getting cold, but the conversation had finally warmed up.